It is a bad day to be Dutch. The U.S. men's national team in less than an hour will take on the Netherlands in the round of 16 matchup, a game which, if the U.S. men's national team win, can tie their best ever output in a World Cup, getting them possibly to the quarterfinal. It is what we are hoping for. It is the reason why neither of us were able to sleep last night. It is the reason why we were so damn excited and why I was like, screw the music, screw all. Let's just jump right into it. Brad, how are you feeling?
I'm a little worse for wear, as you can tell by the sunglasses. I could not sleep last night, so I spent my time drinking bourbon and watching not one, but two extended edition cuts of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship, and Two Towers. And we have a few surprises in the lineup, like the Fellowship had a few surprises in their lineup. So you know what? Jesus Ferreira, you are Frodo today. You must destroy evil, and the Dutch are evil. We believe in
Absolutely.
you. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Let's jump right in. Let's pull up that lineup because you're right. There were I guess some surprises. The first question was whether or not Christian Pulisic was going to start on this team. He is in the starting lineup, so that answers that question right there. The other question we had was about CCV versus Walker Zimmerman in that center back spot. Greg went with Walker Zimmerman, which is I think what we all thought that he was going to pick, just because of the size of the Dutch lineup, especially on set pieces, and 6'4" Cody Gakpo. Is that about what you were thinking?
Yeah, that's definitely an aerial prowess thing. I think, yeah, Cody Gakpo up there, who's tall. You also have to deal with Virgil van Dijk, who I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, score many, many goals for Liverpool on set pieces. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that he went back to Walker for that.
And I think the big surprise is starting Jesus Ferreira at the striker position. I mean, we say it's a surprise. It's not super surprising considering we were expecting Josh Sargent to probably not start this game with the way that the team was talking about his injury. We were also expecting Haji Wright to not start this game, considering the way that he's been playing. And that leaves Jesus Ferreira at that point as the last striker on the lineup. Also, considering that Greg has said that he's not considering any, I'm saying considering an awful lot right now. Greg has not considered any other players to play striker outside of the three strikers that he brought. Thoughts on Jesus Ferreira as a striker in this lineup?
Yeah, you called it last night, and I wonder if they're going to set up in a little bit more of a false nine. He's definitely going to draw back a little bit more and try and connect the attack a little bit. I see the boys out there. Jesus has got the big old cans on. I love it. Boys look locked in. They're smiling. Yeah, not surprised to see Jesus up there. Haji Wright did not cover himself in glory. He made a few. I mean, when they brought him on, there was just such a significant drop off, and I think Josh just isn't fit enough. We might see him later in the game if they need to. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe throws Gio on to replace Jesus at some point. That could be interesting, but I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. The rough part of this squad is that we do have some depth, but that depth is offensive substitution. So if we run into a situation where we're ahead in the game, that's where our depth just isn't quite there. So hopefully we get to see Gio Reyna in this game, just because I think we all love watching him play, and he's just such a phenomenal player. But yeah, with Ferreira up top, it's going to be a different dynamic for this squad. You're not going to get that strong hold-up play that we saw Josh Sargent give us against Iran, but we are probably going to see the striker drop in and be a lot more connected than we've seen in a lot of these games. So curious to see how that plays out. We've seen Jesus Ferreira create a lot of scoring opportunities in recent games for the U.S. men's national team, just not be able to put those away. Maybe now's the time that he'll be able to do that. Now, it's not just going to be the U.S. on that field. We're going to be playing against the Dutch, and the Dutch have released their lineup as well. I think the big surprise for me is Clausen in the middle. He hadn't played in some of the recent games, but we got the big guns are all there. Van Dijk is there, Ake is there, De Jong is there, Blin was there, Gakpo's there, Depay's there. There were questions about whether some of these players for the Dutch were going to be on the field because they were experiencing the flu coming through their lineup. but it looks like all the big guys are there. I'm fascinated by Davy Clausen just because I had to watch so much of him whenever Josh Sargent was at Werder Bremen and Clausen was also at Werder Bremen. And the fact that somebody on that Werder Bremen side is now on this Dutch side in the knockout round of a World Cup is just absolutely fascinating to me. But your thoughts on this Dutch lineup?
You're right. That Bremen team was hard to watch, and I'm sure a lot of us here who were USMNT sickos wasted many a morning watching that team. No, I think that back line is still formidable. Denzel Dumfries, they're playing three at the back with two wing backs. It's solid. I think Tyler Adams is going to have a job smothering Frankie de Jong today. I think that's his main objective is to stop that connection to Gakpo. I think the best way to defend Gakpo is to stop him getting the ball, and either that's Jesus Ferreira pressing the center backs a little bit, or Tyler Adams really getting after it in the midfield and being everywhere, as we have seen him be for us throughout this tournament. And I mean, we've all watched him at Leeds. This is what he does. He's the American N'Golo Kante.
Yeah, I'm seeing somebody pointed this out in the chat. Farrell Among Us says Sargent is listed as doubtful in FOTMob, and I'm actually looking at FOTMob right now.
I
And
am
there
too.
is Josh Sargent at the bottom, listed as doubtful. I don't know if that's something that like FOTMob has inside information or what's going on there. But a little bit concerning nonetheless. Hopefully we can get the job done without him.
And to be fair, FOTMob tends to change every 30 seconds, so we'll see if anything happens there.
Yeah, I remember the great confusion in one game for Chelsea whenever FOTMob released like the incorrect lineup. They had the subs starting and all the
Yeah.
starters on the bench, and Pulisic was a starter, and everybody got excited. And then FOTMob issued a correction, and everybody was sad. So
Yeah.
FOTMob is not infallible, just like none of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, watching this Dutch team play, they haven't created a ton of chances, but the ones that they've created, they tend to be on the spectacular side. They're able to conjure up some moments of class, especially whenever you have passes between De Jong and Memphis and Gakpo and some of their more technical players. They've been able to gash through through defenses and through midfields. Is that a concern for you? How does the U.S. stop that? Is that all about just denying balls into the feet of De Jong?
Yeah, I really think it is. And I think it's going to be pressure, 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 pressure. We're going to have to see. My hope is that the guys recovered well, and they're feeling fresh. Sorry, I'm watching the Fox coverage right now, and they're going through Frankie de Jong as we speak. It's going to come down to energy and tenacity in that midfield, and we've talked about this, how we hate how American players are described as energetic and good athletes. I mean, but that's what they have to be today. They have to run that midfield. And we saw them do it against England, who is, by the sum of their parts, probably a much better midfield. And we handled them very well. So I think they can do it. And yeah, I think that's definitely their job today. And if they clog up that midfield, they're going to open up space on the wings for our wing backs and for our wingers to get in there and do their thing, which really could be exciting.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the space on the wings, but you did mention Tyler Adams and him denying ball into to De Jong. Would you say Tyler Adams is going to be your most important player for the U.S. today, or do you have somebody else in that category?
I think he always is one of, if not the most important player, because if the way he goes, our team usually goes, because he controls that midfield very well. I do think Jesus Ferreira, I think this is a chance for him to purge a lot of demons, because we have he has been much maligned, not only from his missed chances for the U.S. men's national team, but also for FC Dallas. Dude, do it on the big stage. Come on, man. Like, this is your chance. You have been people had taken you to the woodshed and picked apart every bit of your game. Shut them all up today. I think Jesus is going to have a chance today. He will have an opportunity. If he buries it, and I think no better time to do it than now.
Yeah, there's not a lot of players in American soccer history that have scored goals in World Cups, and he has that opportunity to do that today. He certainly has the talent around him that is capable in putting him in those positions to score goals. So it's going to be interesting to see how I consider Jesus to be the striker that we have with the best movement and the most like soccer IQ and putting himself in good spots. So will he be able to work with that front three? In order to create some chances that we really haven't seen the other strikers do. I'm fascinated by that.
And you say soccer IQ, also IQ of Greg's specific game plan,
True.
as well. That's something we've heard Greg say a million times over, and we've seen him get into these positions. And you and I have brought up those. They're not heat maps, but passing maps where it's the horseshoe, and you don't see the striker getting involved very much. Jesus is kind of the opposite of that. He gets in there and mixes up in that horseshoe. So that is something we should be on the lookout for here.
It's going to be fascinating because we've used movement so well to discomfort the opposition. I've seen a few tactical breakdowns that people are praising the U.S.'s system because of the movement with, let's say, on the left flank with Robinson and Pulisic and McKinney and the way that they just unsettled defenders. Jesus is going to move in around them, and he's going to be able to connect that a little bit more. Will that be able to translate to goal scoring opportunities, and can he potentially put one in the back of the net is yet to be seen. How will he deal with the strength of one of the strongest and most physically dominant defenders in the world is a question. That's the game. I want to move on just because Manuel Gonzalez brings up such an excellent point here. This is Des Dat. I don't know what dat means. I don't know if he's from New Orleans and he's given the New Orleans dat, but
I think
put me in the mind of Serginho Dest right now. What is he thinking right now pregame?
Ooh, hang on, I want to pull this up real quick. Look at that man right there.
Yeah.
They put him on the graphic.
They did put him on the graphic.
Cook. I mean, one of the things we talked about is that if our midfield, which I think they can do this, can clog everything up in the middle and open up space out wide, I think our wingers and wingbacks can have some room to operate. And I think we talked about this last night. I think Serge ain't passing today. I think he is taking his shot because he knows most of these dudes. He grew up with a lot of these dudes. He came up through the Ajax Amsterdam Academy. A lot of the starters on the Dutch team play at Ajax and would have seen him coming through in the half a season he spent on the first team. It's not like there's a lot of bad blood there. So he had the option to play for both, and he chose the USMNT. But that being said, I mean, don't you want to show up your old team? I mean, it's just one of those things, and I don't think it's a Jermaine Jones against Germany kind of situation where Jermaine came out and said before the game, if I score, I won't celebrate. I still have a lot of respect for them. I think Serginho is young enough and energetic enough and has a little bit of that weird grit, swag, whatever you want to call it. He has that Serginho in him. And I think he could really cook today.
He's such an interesting person, man. Like every time the players tell stories about him, they're fascinating, from like his baguettes to like the orange chicken to asking for Instagram followers, and just all the stories about Serge are fantastic. One thing that I've learned recently is that the Dutch have been criticizing Serginho Dest. They haven't let it go that he chose the U.S. over the Netherlands. So I wonder how that sits with him. I saw in one of the press conferences that one of the news people from the Netherlands asked him specifically, how do you respond to some of the criticism that you've received from people in the Netherlands? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't read the criticism.
Yeah.
But at least we know that he's aware that he's being criticized and that people in that country are feel a certain type of way about him. So how he responds in this game is going to be fascinating, especially whenever you consider that if you watch that Ecuador game, a game that The Netherlands didn't look I think they were the worst team in that game, if we're being honest. The Ecuador was able to really attack the Netherlands on the wings and in the channels, which is exactly where Serginho Dest likes to roam. So will there be a similar setup and similar opportunities for the US? And can Serginho Dest exploit those opportunities?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he has had the tournament of his life so far, um, and we were worried about no one questions his quality on the ball going forward. We were questioning his discipline to get back and defend. I think this is the day Greg just kind of lets him loose and he goes. And I think it's going to be on Jedi Robinson, Tim Ream, and Walker Zimmerman to kind of float into that back three when he goes forward, and Tyler Adams to cover for him. Because I don't know, I think he's gonna, every chance he gets, he's gonna be looking to go forward.
Yeah, I don't think Greg has anything to do with it. I don't think it's about Greg letting Serge do what Serge is going to Serge. I mean, he's one of those guys that is just a man unto his own. I mean, the 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 balls he had against England whenever he broke into the box and had an opportunity to pass it, and he was like, "Nah, screw this. I'm taking on Harry Kane, and I'm gonna try a left-footed finish." Like, he's one of those players that backs himself to the absolute. He's willing to fire shots from whatever. It's a thing that frustrates you as a fan at times, but we also know that there's times where he's produced the spectacular. And it's not
Yeah,
just been once for the U.S. He's done it a couple of times where he's produced incredible moments where he's broken into the box, either taking a shot from distance or just dribbling a bunch of guys and creating something. Let's not forget, in that game against England, perhaps the best chance of the game was Weston McKennie's scoring opportunity in the box. And I'm pretty sure Serginho Dest was the man who set him up for that. So he's been a special player for the U.S. in this game. He's just a man unto himself. He's an individual personality, and he's got to be brimming with emotion for this game. Let's move on to the midfield. Because I think the midfield is the key matchup in this game between the U.S. and the Dutch. We've been talking about denying the ball to the feet of gosh, I'm blanking on the guy's name right now.
De Jong.
Yeah, De Jong, denying the ball to the feet of De Jong and really stifling the Dutch opportunity to look for balls in behind, look for balls over the top, stuff like that. How do we see the MMA midfield matching up against this midfield now that the lineups are out? Is this a game where we favor the MMA midfield here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely back our midfield against theirs. I think we have, gosh, I hate to keep using this term, but more energy and more grit in there. I mean, I just don't see how we don't smother them and really disconnect what they're trying to do. I think it's going to be very disruptive, and that midfield is going to be clogged, and it's going to have to push everything out wide. And when you're pushing everything out wide, I don't think that they really have the quality to provide that service into their top guys, Gakpo and Depay. So I'm fairly confident in the MMA midfield today.
Yeah, I saw against England, the midfield was so clogged up that they just had to keep dropping numbers back. I mean, we saw Harry Kane constantly dropping in, and that was really their best source of moving the ball up, was finding Harry Kane whenever he dropped back, or finding one of the midfielders who dropped in. But what ends up happening is whenever they do that, whenever they have a lot of players drop in, they just don't have a lot of players forward because it's a numbers game at that point. Now, I do think the Dutch will be able to overload our midfield if they're struggling to possess the ball up. Akai can definitely step into the midfield. I think Daily Blend can step into the midfield, no problem. It's just a question of once those guys step into the midfield, create some uneven matchups and be able to pass out of it. Are they going to have the spaces at that point to really exploit the U.S., or are they going to be just positionally outnumbered in other areas? I think that's going to be the question of how the Dutch are able to break down this MMA midfield, which to be fair, nobody's done yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And honestly, I don't rate this Dutch team higher than England. And to be fair, the uh, attack that the England team was trying to service is much more formidable than the uh, attack that the Dutch have. So yeah, I'm not too frightened about that. I'm backing our boys all the way.
Yeah, I see a bunch of English people in the chat, which is odd. I guess this early in the morning, it's like prime time in England, but pretty early in the States. So the English for the English guys in the chat, Stephen Tides, and what's your name, Vin something. What do you feel like this Dutch side is better than the English side? Because I don't know. I don't see it. I see the English as a little bit more complete at every position, a little bit stronger at every position. Though the Dutch might have maybe a little bit more flair, a little bit more magic in them. I don't see that they're like completely stronger than the English. I mean, it's a favorable matchup for the U.S. And I'm not saying that as if like we're gonna win or that we're not underdogs. I'm saying it could be a lot worse for the U.S. in the round of 16. There's some matchups that you absolutely don't want. This is one that it's winnable. It's out there for us. I see Steven Tide says England is better. He's not a fan of his manager, though, clearly. Daniel Erstetter says England is better. Keyshawn, I like this. England is overrated. Everyone know how to play against Prem style.
I
Yeah.
don't think overrated, but I do think we had there definitely was a familiarity there, especially when we played them. Overrated, no, those are top players.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of our lineup plays against these guys week in, week out. So yeah, familiarity, not overrated.
I'm fascinated by what happens after this tournament. There's been a couple of our players that have gotten a lot of buzz. I think Yunus Musa in particular has gotten buzz, connecting him to I know Inter Milan was one of the big ones, but there's just been a lot of buzz around him. What is it about that player that makes him so attractive to the big clubs in Europe? And what are you looking for from him specifically in this game?
I mean, the Jew just does everything. I mean, I don't know if there's really a weakness in his game. He's got the pace. He will get back. He will defend. He knows he doesn't take a lot of chances in the defensive end. He times his tackles very well, but he can also progress the ball very, very well. The final third is maybe a little lacking, but that's something that I think a big club can teach. And I mean, we forget that the kid's still only 19, or I'm sorry, 20 and like 3 days. But he progresses the ball so well. He has such a high soccer IQ. I think big teams are absolutely salivating. I know a few months ago it was reported that Liverpool was looking at him, and I think that could be a very interesting landing spot for him. And then the big Italian clubs as well. I mean, you can't go wrong with with either of the clubs in Milan at the moment. Don't go to Juventus because they're probably going to get relegated with all the drama going on over there in Turin.
Yeah, there's a lot happening with Juventus right now. Fascinating to see what happens there because, of course, Wes McKennie's playing over there. Christian Pulisic returns to this lineup after the pelvic contusion heard around the world. Just a gruesome injury to see live in person, but he's back a few days later in the lineup. A reporter asked him if what it's like to have that Landon Donovan moment, that moment that's going to live on forever. And he responded that he hoped he hasn't had it yet, that
Yeah.
the best is yet to come for him. What do you think about his legacy already in the U.S. men's national team circles? Coming into this tournament, a lot of people had him as either our best player ever or one of our best players ever. But a lot of the old heads said, hold on now. He hasn't done anything. He has to show us that he can do it in a World Cup. Well, here we are in the World Cup. He's got an assist and a goal now for the U.S. and has just been an absolute warrior. What has this World Cup done for the legacy of Christian Pulisic, even though he's still only 24 years old?
Yeah, I think it cemented him as a top tier guy. We always knew the potential was there. We always knew that he had the talent to be one of those dudes. And for a while there, especially after that night in Trinidad, he felt like he had to do everything. So we didn't see. We saw it in spurts. We saw that talent come out in spurts, but it wasn't always very consistent because he felt like he had to be all things everywhere all at once. And we know from watching this game that rarely ever goes well when a guy feels like he has to take over a game. But once he has come into this environment, I think once that burden of qualifying was lifted off of his shoulders, he's been able to play free and really show his quality. And he's had moments in this tournament that have shown everybody who doubted him on the U.S. men's side that they were wrong. And I think that he's proven a lot of the doubters on the club side that they were wrong as well. Because, I mean, don't forget, this is a dude who won man of the match in the Bernabeu against Real Madrid. The dude has the goods. I mean, it was never a question of that. It was a question is, can he unlock it up here for the U.S. men's national team on the big stage? And guess what? He did it. He's got the 2 goals we have. He is directly involved with both. So haters can suck it. But I do agree. I don't think that magic moment has happened yet. I do think it's still to come, and maybe it comes today. You never know.
Yeah, and one of the most magical moments in Pulisic's career was that assist the whole game that he had against Liverpool a few years ago, but specifically on the assist where, I mean, he smoked Virgil van Dijk there, and we're hoping that we can see him do that again. I think the assist megged Van Dijk after he had just blew by a couple of other Liverpool defenders. Hopefully we get to see that again. Chat, I'm curious. Let me know in the chat who you think is going to be the biggest impact player for the U.S. today, because we're kind of going through the list of who we think it's going to be. So you guys let us know who's going to be the biggest impact player for the U.S. today. Let's see what Xbox Everywhere has to say. Sam and Brad, we're going to win with a Super Bach beer at 2:33 p.m. here in Portugal. Switching over to American whiskey for the match. How about you? I just knocked down some coffee, and then after this stream, I'm going to grab some strawberries, and that's what I'm going to be eating. Brad, how about you?
I'm drinking some water right now. Afterwards, I'll have a bourbon. If and when we win, I will have a celebratory bourbon.
I'm getting some interesting answers here. Let's see. Weah in the 9 and McKinney, of course. I don't think Weah is playing 9, but McKinney is a fascinating answer because McKinney has really been the midfield maestro for the U.S., a midfield that's been attacked for not being creative enough. McKinney has provided that creative spark. And we knew that's something that was part of his game that he can do. We just haven't seen it from him recently since he returned from injury. He just didn't quite have that final end product technical play to his game. That sort of returned in a big way throughout this tournament. Of course, he gets the big MLS assist on the Christian Pulisic goal in the Iran game. He's that player that if the U.S. are able to create space in the midfield, he can slice up the Dutch with a pass in behind.
One of the things he said, Weah at the 9, I wouldn't be surprised to see what we saw against England, where we kind of went to a 4-4-2 with Weah and Jesus up there. That could happen for at least the first bit of the game.
Absolutely. I see Christopher Eli here says, or Ellie says, Ferreira, if he's going to take his chance, now is the time. Yeah, I think you talked about that earlier. You know, the reports before the World Cup came out, and these are just reports. I don't know if this is true or not, but there were reports connecting Jesus Ferreira to Arsenal. There were reports saying that Arsenal was monitoring Jesus Ferreira, that Mikel Arteta really sees him as a very similar player to Gabriel Jesus, who's the striker over at Arsenal, that he does similar things, plays that false 9 game, can connect, can be a player that when he's on the field at the striker position can just make a more formidable attack for everybody else on the field, create chances for everybody. Do you see that as a part of Jesus's game? To me, I think Jesus is the player that can gain the most from this game of any player on the U.S. squad.
I think so too. And I think, honestly, now that I think about it, I think Mikel Arteta might be the perfect coach for him because Mikel Arteta has really nurtured a lot of guys and helped unlock things mentally because we've seen it in MLS, not so much in the playoffs this past season, but we've seen his quality. He does have that, but it's sometimes in the biggest stage he gets the yips. So I think Mikel Arteta might actually be a guy who can unlock that and get all the tools that Jesus has in his bag to come out on the biggest stage.
I see. Okay, Trey says Pulisic, I think again, and yeah, I mean Pulisic has just come up time and time again for this squad. For a player that was criticized at times for not coming up big in World Cup qualifying, and throughout his career, his club career, he's been criticized for just not being consistent. He's been consistent in this tournament. He's been our best player, and he's doing it time and time again. Can he do it today against the Dutch?
I hope so. I hope he has 90 minutes plus extra time in him as well, because if we go to pens, we definitely need him. He must be okay enough to where he's not going to have to come off the field. Because if he's not, I don't know how you start him. Because if you think this game has the possibility of going to extra time and penalties, you need him out there. So they must feel very confident that he can go what is it, 120 minutes?
Gosh, that's scary, man. Now the only thing that makes me feel a bit better about potentially going 120 minutes against the Dutch is that their second line is not that great either. I mean, there's a bit of a drop off from their top end players to their bench. However, I think our drop off from our top end players to our bench is more significant than theirs. So yeah, I'm a bit concerned about a 120-minute game in the World Cup. I mean, we've seen this U.S. team in World Cups before. Whenever you go into extra time, it tends to not be a great thing for us
Yeah.
because we just don't have that depth, and I don't think that we have it here. I really hope that we're able to
I mean,
win it.
Brendan and Gio off the bench are great options.
They are, yeah, but the
Yeah.
concern is the midfield for me.
Yeah. Luca
Once our
Della
top end
Torre,
guys go,
Kellen Acosta would probably be your guys. Yeah, I don't know. We'll definitely see.
yeah, some of the big questions coming into this tournament was just the overall health of our guys. Gio Reyna has been the big question mark. Are we going to see Gio Reyna today? But Luca Della Torre is another one. Luca Della Torre is a player that got hurt right before the World Cup, and we just don't know what kind of form he's in, if he's able to go at all. This would be a game if the U.S. does go into extra time that we would get something from Luca Della Torre. Luca Della Torre is a player that actually played in the Netherlands last season before his move to Celta Vigo. Could this be his game to make a statement if we go late?
You know, they said on the roster drop day that he was about like 95% of the way there. And that was 3 weeks ago now, wasn't it? Almost 4 weeks ago now. So I don't know if there are that many concerns about his health anymore. I hope not, unless he's had a setback while in camp. But he's out there warming up right now. So I could see him. And yeah, he was really great it was Heracles, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was at Heracles, and that was a bad club. He wasn't getting a lot of help there. But this could be, he would be familiar with a lot of the guys in that lineup. So, you know, yeah, this could be a Luca Della Torre game.
If it goes into extra time, I don't think we have much choice. Like we just have to empty out the bench. So we got to see what he's got. I don't know how much he's got in his legs, but we'll see. We'll see what he's got. Brad McDorfhead says U.S. set pieces need to be better, and this is an area of the game that I'm really concerned with. Not so much because of our set pieces, but because of the Dutch. I would love to get a goal off of a set piece. I would love for our set pieces to be better. We do bring Zimmerman back into this game, which is a bit more of a threat on set pieces than Cameron Carter-Vickers. However, whenever the Dutch have set pieces, they've got some big boys. I mean, Gakpo is dominant in the air. Virgil van Dijk is a freak in the air. They've got I think they've got a bigger team than us. They're probably going to have the advantage on set pieces. It is a concern for me. Do you see that's like the reason why Cameron Carter Vickers is not in this lineup and Walker Zimmerman is?
Yes, absolutely. Gosh, it's weird. It's so weird for us because that used to be the U.S. men's national team's
Yeah.
calling card for so many years, and now we're playing pretty soccer. So that's just the world we live in, I guess. But yeah, I don't think you look for anything off set pieces from us today, because they got some big tall dudes in there. I think actually I may be off base on this, but I think the Dutch are actually the tallest people per capita, tallest nation per capita, like in the world. So good for them. But yeah, that's definitely why you bring Walker Zimmerman back in and hope that he can hang with Gecko or Virgil van Dijk, which is a very tall order.
Let's talk legacy here. Let's assume that the U.S. go through and make it to the quarterfinals. Does this team immediately become? We talked coming into this tournament that this was probably the most talented lineup that we've ever brought to a World Cup. Does this team immediately become just the greatest team that we've ever had? I mean, we did make it to the quarterfinals in 2002 with a very strong team, but I think we had some favorable things happen our way in that tournament. I don't know if it was necessarily domination that led to the quarterfinals for that squad. Would this squad be considered the best in U.S. history if they're able to make it through to the quarterfinals?
So you're just totally negating the 1930 team. Third place finish. No, I think what their legacy will be is that they are the baby phoenix that rose from the ashes of 2018. We did have some success in 02 and in 94 in those teams, but it wasn't sustainable at that point. This, I think, is the start of a real footballing nation, because the structure is in place now to bring players through to the full team. That wasn't really there before. We were just kind of hoping that, one of our good athletes would stick with soccer or pick it up late in high school. Now we have kids playing this game and learning this game at a high level from a very young age. And I think the legacy of this team will be, this is just the start. And I think a lot of these guys will have big, this is a big World Cup, don't get me wrong, but I think there are bigger days ahead for guys like Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams. I think the legacy is that this is just the beginning.
Yeah, and it's so cool that we have so many players that are in great positions to be a part of the 2026 World Cup squad that aren't in this team. What you got?
Josh Sargent officially out.
Wow. Okay, so there you go. That makes sense to why Jesus Ferreira is in the lineup. That's something that we kind of figured would happen. It didn't sound like the reports that we were getting about Josh's health were optimistic. It also kind of confirms what we've suspected all along, that if there is a player that's injured for the U.S., the coaching staff is not going to tell us about it. We're just not going to get accurate information about injuries from this team, which is fine. I mean, that's what you would expect from a coaching staff. Does that change anything for you, considering the way that we've seen Haji Wright play in this tournament and the fact that we got Jesus Ferreira starting up top?
If you take Jesus Ferreira off, you got to have your best attackers out there, especially if you think this game's going to go to extra time. I think if he's playing more of a false 9 hybrid kind of thing, I think you throw Gio or Brendan up there to replace him if you need to take him off.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends on game state as well. I mean, if the U.S. go up 2-0 early and we're trying to hold on to a lead, I think that changes things a little bit. Maybe Haji Wright comes in to be that guy to chase down the opposition center backs and try to deny balls into the box. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I was making a point earlier that even though this squad is so talented, we do have a lot of players that are very talented, very young, that didn't make this team for whatever reason, that could be factors in 2026. And I'm not just talking about Chris Richards and Ricardo Pepi, who potentially could have been on this team. I'm talking about guys like Kevin Paredes, Jonathan Gomez, Paxton Aronson just got a move to the Bundesliga. There's just a lot of guys all over the place that are in positions where they could very much be a part of this squad sooner rather than later. And looking at this squad, I mean, we've talked about our midfield depth and some of the defensive substitutions that we have, and about our center back depth. I mean, we're a few players away from really being a team that can really feel comfortable going at a quarterfinal position. We're not quite there yet. I think we're in a position right now in the round of 16 to potentially make the quarterfinals, but I think we're the underdogs at this point. I feel like if we had a little bit more depth on this squad, we'd really be happy with our position to challenge for quarterfinals and beyond.
And that it's coming. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm seeing a shout for Cade Cowell there. Yeah, I mean,
Hayden
there are a lot
Clark.
of, and we've got two dudes at La Masia right now that are balling. Also, it's worth noting that I think it's our U19s just wiped the floor in whatever tournament they
It
were.
was U16s. I think they were a little bit younger.
U16s beat Wales, beat England. Yeah, you look at the net. I think the signals for the team we have now started showing at the youth level, and we started hearing rumblings about this kid Christian Pulisic and this kid Haji Wright and this kid Weston McKennie. Those same rumblings are happening now, and it's not just rumblings. These kids are highly sought after. So you say we're short one or two positions and a little bit of depth. That depth is going to be there in 2026. There's no doubt in my mind that it
Yeah.
will be there.
I see Barry Allen says Jack McGlynn, which is a huge shout as well. I mean, he's
Yeah,
looked really great
absolutely.
for the Union. I'm curious. You mentioned rumblings, and it feels like the rumblings in this country for this tournament just keep growing louder and louder. I feel like it really kind of started as whispers and rumblings, and has really grown louder till we've gotten to this point where I think a lot of people are excited about this team and about this sport in this country, and are looking for ways to learn more. What does a win today mean for soccer in the United States?
I think we talked about it yesterday. Greg said he wanted to change the way the world viewed American soccer, and that's job done. I think so. I think people who really know soccer, really know football, see what the U.S. is doing and see kind of poking around a little bit and see what's going on at the youth level and what's going on with MLS. They're going like, oh crap, it's actually finally happened. Like, you've been saying American soccer's coming for 20 years. It's actually happening now. The thing that has to change is you have to change the way America sees American men's soccer. And it's happening. And I think a win does a lot for that. But on one of our first streams, I talked about Charles Barkley when TNT got the rights to the national team, saying, our women are great, our men suck, they suck, they suck, they suck. And then 2 days ago, a clip comes out of him on Inside the NBA going, I guarantee that the Netherlands are in trouble, and he's calling Tyler Adams his boy. And that's, I mean, hey, I'm all for that. And welcome on the bandwagon. I mean, we people like you and I and everybody in this chat, we can't be gatekeepers. If someone got into this because of the World Cup or because of freaking Ted Lasso, I don't care. Welcome into the soccer tent. It's fun here. There's a lot of cool stuff. And I think a big win today will go a long way to really solidifying that, because what comes next is probably a game against Messi. And that is just a big stage to be on. And I think a lot of people, I remember in 2010, I was watching the World Cup, and we were losing to Ghana. It was the day of my high school graduation party, and my aunt just goes, how are we losing to Ghana? And I was like, well, actually, this, that, and the other. If we go out to Messi, everybody knows Messi. So it would kind of be a little bit easier to stomach for the casual fan and not put them off like a loss to a nation that doesn't have that big star that everybody knows.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we're teetering on the brink right now, and I'm getting text messages from my friends who don't care about soccer at all, who are asking me about the game right now. We're about 10 minutes out from this just monumentous game. Chat, let me know who you think is going to win. What do you think the score will be, and who are gonna who are gonna get those goals? I think it's time for us to put in our predictions. I mean, I always make you go first, which is a bit unfair because it means that I get to think about my answer. So I'll go first this time.
Okay.
I think the U.S. is really going to be able to stifle the Netherlands early on. I think that they're going to have a lot of possession where they're passing it around their back five, but really struggle to penetrate the center of the field. A lot like what we saw against England. So I think the U.S. is going to be able to drop into that defensive 4-4-2 and allow the Netherlands to have the ball for a while. But once we win it back, I think we're going to be able to have some possession against these guys. I'm curious to see how Jesus Ferreira complements the front three in the attack, and how he might add some combination play and allow us to play through the middle. I know some of our best moments in attack so far in the World Cup have been whenever we've gotten runners through the middle, whenever we've gotten Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah attacking that middle channel. And I think having Jesus in there may allow us to do that a little bit more consistently. So I think that's good things for us. I think we can get a goal in this game. I really do. I think we can challenge this Dutch side, but I'm really worried about the Dutch on set pieces. So I do feel like it might be 1-1 going late into this game, with the U.S. getting a goal in open play and the Dutch potentially getting a goal on a set piece, just because they have so much more quality there than we do. So I think it's going to come down to that late winner, and I think it's going to be really close, man. I mean, the thing that I hope will happen is that maybe Tim Weah plays in Jesus Ferreira and he gets a goal right there and gets a little bit of redemption and some kudos from the U.S. crowd. But I think that it's going to be a 1-1 late, and I think it's going to come down to that final goal.
I think you make some great points there. I think it's either 1-0 US or 1-1 and heads to extra time and penalties. And I think we'll have to, I think we will see Matt Turner tested a few times today. And I think he will have to come up big. All right. I'm starting to get nervous now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Matt Turner is a player that we haven't really seen much of in the World Cup outside of his distribution. Everybody coming into this game felt like Matt Turner was going to have a say in this tournament with some big shots stopped. Maybe you could say he did that against England, but you just haven't seen that stand on his head game from Matt Turner. Maybe this will be it. But
Yep.
if that happens, I feel okay because he's just such a good keeper. We're getting some
Yep.
predictions of a 2-0 and 2-1. So we'll see what happens in this game. Any last words before we let it go and check out those national anthems?
The boys are walking out on the field. They look fresh. They look cool. Oh boy, here we go. Your nation is behind you. I mean, you got a cool video from Joe Biden and Tyler Adams today saying it's called soccer. That was awesome. Just go do it. Go be you. Go play free and enjoy it, America. This only comes around so often.
All right, guys, we'll be here after the game for the post-game victory party, the celebration. Keep it locked in. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe. We'll see you on the other side. Let's go, USA. Let's bring this one home, man.